Think you've seen it all? Think you can? Outside those doors, we might see anything. And if you come with me, nothing will ever be the same again.
Let's go. Doctor Who, coming soon to BBC One. I battle with my textbooks.
I battle with monsters.
I try to save money.
I try to save the universe.
I'm going to be a doctor.
I am the Doctor.
Well, let's hope this box is big enough for both of us. Doctor Who, coming soon to BBC One. There are things waiting in the darkness. Creatures of metal, fire, blood. But he's out there, burning through time, facing 1,000 dangers across the stars and never giving up. He looks like a man, but he's a legend, and his name is the Doctor. He'll come back to save us, and this time, I'm gonna be ready. Then just like that,
We'll be gone. Sometimes I think the time no one lives too long.
The day is almost upon us. This is the Doctor's final battle.
I don't want you to die.
This shall be spectacular. Gallifrey rises. The time lords are returned. At last, we are gathered for the end.
the 10th Doctor's final adventure concludes. Doctor Who.
Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail, and welcome to the 5th video in this ranking every episode from every Doctor's Era series. So in this series, I do a video on each and every Doctor, and I decided to do it in reverse order this time. So I started the series with the 15th Doctor, and I ranked every episode from the Ncuti Gatwa era in a tier list. Then I moved on to the 13th Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, and ranked all of her episodes. Then I moved on to the 12th Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi, and ranked every one of his episodes. And then in the last video, I ranked every single 11th Doctor story, played by the amazing Matt Smith. So, if you can guess where that means we're going, and from the steelbooks behind me, I am of course in this video going to be ranking every single 10th Doctor episode from the David Tennant era. And just like I said last time with the Matt Smith era, the David Tennant era is a very popular era. It's an era where a lot of people, you know, see it as like the golden era of the modern series. David Tennant is the Tom Baker of the modern series. Whenever you think of Doctor Who, a lot of people will think of either Tom Baker, if you're a bit more of a long-term fan. Even if you're not a long-term fan, people know about Tom Baker and the long scarf. But especially if you're just a fan of the modern era, you know David Tennant and you love and cherish that era. I don't know too many people who aren't a massive fan of David Tennant's era. You know, I'm a bit hit or miss with his era, to be perfectly honest, but I can't deny that his era does have some amazing stories, and I've been looking forward to doing this list for a little while. So in every single one of these videos that I've done, I'd like you just to keep in mind that this is just my personal opinion. So if there's an episode that's quite low on the list that you really enjoy, you know, that's okay, that's fine. I'm happy to hear your opinion on it. But just remember, this is just my personal opinion and based on my enjoyment of a particular episode, and then vice versa. But without any further ado, let's jump into this video ranking every single 10th Doctor story. Okay then, so here is my ranking every 10th Doctor episode tier list. There is a lot of episodes to get through, from the Christmas Invasion to the End of Time Part 2. So we're going to waste no time, we're going to jump straight into this. But these are the categories we've got again. So top of the shop, we've got The Laws of Time Are Mine and They Will Obey Me. Then in the great episodes, so these are not perfect episodes, but these are good episodes, we've got Alonzo. Then the OK category, we've got It's Not Time That Matters, It's the Person. Then in the bad category, so these aren't god-awful stories, but these are just bad ones that I don't rewatch very often. You've got You Can Spend the Rest of Your Life with Me, but I Can't Spend the Rest of Mine with You. And then bottom of the barrel, terrible stories that I don't like to rewatch and I don't think are very good. We've got I'm Sorry, I'm So Sorry. So let's begin straight away then with The Christmas Invasion, which for me I think is a fairly good story, because it's just a lot of fun, and it was the first post-regeneration story of the modern era, so it had the task of trying to explain what regeneration is and how it can affect the Doctor and affect those around him. The Doctor does spend most of the episode bedbound, which is a little bit of a negative, which is why it's not top of the shop, but I've put it in here because of the enjoyment, because the Sycorax are interesting villains, and because this episode allows us to get to know regeneration more from the companion's side, so you really get to see how it affects Rose, how it affects Jackie, Mickey, those around him, and I think that's done really, really well. The emotions, I think they do play on it a little bit too much at times, because this season you really get a lovey-dovey relationship with the Doctor and Rose, which I'm not huge on. But I think overall it's quite a nice episode and quite a fun episode. And this is the episode with the killer Christmas tree, and I think that is just absolutely hilarious. So I quite like The Christmas Invasion. New Earth for me, I think is an okay episode. I wouldn't say it's brilliant, but it is an okay episode. So it's the first proper adventure for the 10th Doctor and Rose, you know, and he battles against Cassandra again, who he hasn't seen since the Christopher Eccleston era, back in the end of the world. And they go to this hospital full of all these diseased people who have like every disease known in the universe, and one touch can give you all of that. So it's like almost like a base under siege story, but it's like a hospital under siege. And there's body swapping going on because Cassandra wants to steal Rose's body so that she can be free from her, you know, basically like flat pack prison. But it's really, really good because you get to delve more deeper into Cassandra's psyche and see that she, you know, she's quite troubled, but she's also scared and worried and feels lonely. She's got this weird little companion called Chip, who I love Chip. He's brilliant. But yeah, it is really quite sweet, and you get a good, sweet ending to Cassandra at the end, because she does sadly not make it out, but she does, you know, sort of get to see herself in the past and comfort herself in her time of need. I don't know, it's all really, really bittersweet, really, to be honest. I quite like New Earth, but it's not anything spectacular. And the body swapping, albeit quite funny at times, especially when Cassandra possesses the Doctor's body, does get a little bit repetitive after a while. Tooth and Claw. Now, this will shock some people, but I'm actually not a fan of Tooth and Claw. I don't really like it. I wouldn't say it's a terrible story, but just for me, it's not one that I'm desperate to go back and rewatch. This one does set up the foundations for Torchwood later on down the line, which is interesting. And I do love a werewolf story, but I'm not sure it was done in the best, you know, way, if I'm perfectly honest. I also found Rose to be quite annoying in this story. Even the Doctor, to a degree, if I'm being perfectly honest. I couldn't connect with any of the characters. And yeah, I just felt a bit let down by this episode, to be honest. Like, it's not the worst episode ever, but it's definitely not the greatest. Then we've got School Reunion. Now, I don't know whether this is just my New Who bias here, but for me, I really like School Reunion, because obviously this is the one that brought back Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Sladen, for the first time, and John Leeson as K9. So you've got the classic series meets the modern series, and I thought it was done absolutely brilliantly. It was great seeing Elizabeth Sladen again, great seeing John Leeson as K9, and you get to see Rose truly understand that she wasn't the first person to travel with the Doctor, and that there was people before her, and there will probably be people after her, because Rose just can't see that at that point. And there's a great little bit of banter between Rose and Sarah, where they're listing off different villains that they faced with the Doctor, and it is hilarious. It is like the ex meets the current girlfriend, so to speak. But also the Krillitanes, these like bat-like creatures who are possessing, who aren't, well, not possessing, but they've become the teachers of the school, and they are trying to feed the children this like substance in their food that makes them clever, so they can break this code and, you know, to take over the world, so to speak. It is really, really interesting. Quite like it, and the school setting's interesting as well. It really did make you also get a bit of a foundation for the Sarah Jane adventures as well, because Sarah deals with that sort of thing and obviously works a lot with children like Clyde and Rani and Luke and Maria. So it really does set the foundation for the Sarah Jane adventures as well, and I think it's done really, really well. The Girl in the Fireplace, I think this is a good story. I wouldn't say it's like top of the shop, but I would definitely say it is a good story. The Clockwork Droids, I think, are a fantastic design and an interesting concept for a villain. I like the idea that they're just on this ship that has different like windows to the past. It's quite interesting. The Doctor obviously gets a bit of a relationship with Madame de Pompadour in this, which again is another reason why season 2 in particular is not one of my favourites, because it does feel a bit more like they're trying to just teeter onto relationships, but not in the Doctor Who way, like, you know, more, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, get married, so to speak, relationships, and that's not really what Doctor Who's about, in my opinion. But I do love the comedy in this as well, because Mickey has joined the TARDIS crew at this point. After coming back in School Reunion, Mickey Smith has joined the TARDIS, so you got the Doctor, Rose and Mickey. And Mickey trying to fit into their life is so hilarious. And the Doctor also adopts a horse in this story, and so you got a horse following him around. I thought that was good. So we had a good bit of comedy element to the horror element, the scariness that the Clockwork Droids bring, especially with a young Madame de Pompadour hiding under her bed. That was a terrifying scene, might I add. But yeah, I really, really do like The Girl in the Fireplace, and I can see why other people like it too. Then you've got The Rise of the Cybermen, which for me, I think the first part is okay. It is an okay story, you know. The Doctor and co travel and break into a parallel universe by accident. They get stuck there because the TARDIS needs to recharge. So they just go exploring, but they find out that this is a universe where Rose's father didn't actually die, and so Rose is now interested and get lured into that temptation. And so, yeah, they just go exploring, and they find out that there's this technology company run by a man called John Lumick, who is, in fact, actually trying to make people better, trying to make them stronger, trying to make himself stronger. And, you know, by doing that, he's putting them into metal casings and removing their emotions or inhibiting them, which, as we all know as Doctor Who fans, especially classic fans, new Whovians might not know it as much at the time, but they might have heard about them, because it's hard to not know about the Cybermen. But in fact, obviously, he is building basically a parallel universe version of Cybermen. And it ends on an interesting cliffhanger as well, where the Doctor and co are surrounded by the Cybermen, now fully formed, and they get their catchphrase of delete. The Age of Steel I like a little bit better, actually, surprisingly, compared to Rise of the Cybermen, but that's because you get to then see the Cybermen properly, you know, hunting people down, they're taking people into their factories, converting them. You get to see the effects that it's having on people. You know, it's really intense. I get like Invasion vibes from the classic series of Age of Steel. It's quite a sad one, because Mickey Smith does actually depart and stays in the parallel universe in this story, because he realises that Rose is going to constantly just focus on the Doctor, so it's pointless him being there, which is quite sad, to be perfectly honest, but that's kind of what happens to Rose's character in season 2. She turns away all the people that she actually knows, loves, and have built her up, and just throws it all away for the Doctor, which is kind of why I prefer Rose in series 1 of Christopher Eccleston than in David Tennant's era. But I really like Age of Steel, and I think it's a fun story. Idiot's Lantern for me, yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Idiot's Lantern, if I'm honest. I get it, it's quite a funny story at times, and it's supposed to be a bit more lighthearted compared to what came before it, and what's going to come after it. But if I'm being perfectly honest, it's not done the best. You know, again, the Doctor and Rose are a bit insufferable in this story as well. You know, the villain of The Wire, who's stealing people's faces to feed off of them and feed off, you know, their memories and stuff like that. You know, interesting concept, but it's a weird concept. Not really huge on it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But hey-ho, it's not the worst story ever, but it's not one that I jump to rewatch. The next two-parter, I'm going to put them together, because if you know, and if you've watched my ranking of Modern Doctor Who, you know my thoughts on this story. The Impossible Planet and The Satan's Pit, for me, is a solid two-part story, and I think it's just amazing. It's really dark, really intense, really scary as well. You know, the Doctor and Rose land on this spaceship So it's another base under siege story. They land on this spaceship, which is on the cusp of a black hole, which is somehow being held back due to this weird pit, which has this weird gravitational pull, which we find out in the later story, in the second part, that actually there's a beast down in the pit, which is preventing them from going to the black hole. They introduces the Ood to people as well, which the Ood are a massive New Who creation, and I love the Ood. You've got Gabriel Wolf doing the voice of the Beast, which I think is brilliant. If you know Gabriel Wolf, he's the voice of Sutek. And you've got a character called Toby, who gave me nightmares when I watched this story, because when he gets possessed by the Beast and has all the funny lettering and the bright red eyes, it is scary. All the cast in this are done brilliantly. All the crew of the spaceship done brilliantly. The pacing is done so well. And it is really, really intense. And I love it. I've watched this story multiple times. And I'd happily sit down and rewatch it at any point. Love and Monsters. Well, I mean, come on now. It's Love and Monsters. I'm going to put it down here, though. I wouldn't say it is the worst. Just because I think, like, it's quite funny, actually, in terms of how silly it is. You know, I love the design of the Absorbloff, don't get me wrong. I think it does fit into Doctor Who universe. Probably would be better off maybe in like Sarah Jane Adventures, if I'm perfectly honest. But it works. Peter Kay, for the most part, does an alright job. This is a Doctor Light story. It's all about this little group called Linda, who are, you know, a group of people who just want to hang out and chill, but they get interrupted by Peter Kay's character, who comes in and, you know, just has an unhealthy obsession with finding the Doctor in order to absorb him and get all the powers of time and space. And so changes the group, and it just becomes a big search out for the Doctor. And you follow the character Elton, you know, with his life and how the Doctor tangles up in it. You know, it's an alright... Well, it's not an alright story, let's be honest. I usually do want to skip it. It is bad, but in a bit of a fun way, I suppose. Fear Her. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Fear Her either, to be perfectly honest. And I'm going to put it down here, because I'm so sorry, but I'm not a huge fan of Fear Her. I recently rewatched it a little while ago. Didn't really enjoy it. The only thing I enjoyed is the line where there's a councilman who's, you know, fixing the road, and Rose is starting to dig up the road because there's an alien spaceship or alien pod in the ground that they need to get in order to save the Doctor, because stuff has gone wrong at this point. And he says, you know, you can't take that. That's, you know, you're taking a council axe from a council van and digging up a council road. I'm reporting you to the council. I love that line. If you've watched the episode, you know that line. But yeah, basically the Doctor and Rose land on Earth in the... Well, won't be the future now for us, because it's all to do with the 2012 Olympic Games. But the future at the time, and there's this pod that's landed on Earth that's possessed this little girl, and this little girl has the ability to draw anything, and it will get sucked into that drawing, and just so that she doesn't have to be alone. It's all because the girl feels lonely, feels like she's being left out by her mother, who's traumatized due to the abuse of her father, not the wife's father, the daughter's father, who Chloe has drawn in her wardrobe, and the more drawings she does, it seems to almost be feeding him, and he's going to eventually get out, and he says he's going to hurt her. So it's quite, you know, it's got a theme of domestic abuse in this as well. So the themings are all done well, but it's just the pacing's off. The characters are a bit annoying, if I'm perfectly honest. So I'm not a huge fan of it, and it is my least favourite story of season 2. The next story we have is Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Now, to be fair, I think Army of Ghosts and Doomsday is a fairly good story. I'd say Army of Ghosts sets up everything in a really good way. It's got good mystery to it. The Doctor and Rose land back on Earth, which is now invaded with these little ghosts that come out in little shifts. And we're wondering what's going on. And it's being run by Torchwood, who have now fully established themselves. And so the Doctor's trying to figure out what's going on. And they work out that by the end, the ghost shift is basically ripping a hole in the fabric of time and allowing like a connection to happen between their universe and another universe, which is apparently the parallel universe that the Cybermen were in earlier in the series. And it turns out that all the ghosts are Cybermen. And then down below in Torchwood, there's this big sphere, which is, reacting to the constant ghost shifts and the rifts opening up, breaking down the fabric of time to allow them to slip through. What's slipping through? Well, we find out it's the Daleks, in particular the Cult of Skaro, with like Dalek Sec, Dalek Khan, Dalek Just, and Dalek They, followed by the Genesis Arc, which is unbelievable. I love the design of the Genesis Arc, and I love the design of Dalek Sec. And so what we then get is, and I think it is brilliant, I'm going to put it up here, but I will preface that there is a part of the story that I really don't like. I love part 2 because I've always wanted to have the Daleks versus the Cybermen, and I think it's done really, really well. But it does make the Cybermen look weak, because the Daleks are easily able to defeat the Cybermen. And I am more of a Cyberman fan than the Dalek fan, so that does kind of make me a bit frustrated, but I do love it, and I love the banter between the Daleks and the Cybermen. It's also Rose Tyler's last official story as main core companion, because she does get stuck in a parallel universe at the end of this story, which is the part of the story that I don't like, because towards the end, Rose chooses the Doctor over her mother, which, is why I really commend Amy in the 11th Doctor's era for not choosing the Doctor over Rory, because that's how it should be. She chooses, even the Doctor's annoyed, you'll never be able to see her again, your own mother. Even the Doctor's annoyed at Rose about it. But they spend the last 15 minutes of the story, like, crying and, on a beach talking about, oh, I really love you, this, that, and I'm like, nah, no thank you. Good cliffhanger, though, introducing Donna Noble in the TARDIS. Speaking of Donna Noble, The Runaway Bride, I think, is a good Christmas special. I love The Runaway Bride. So funny. Catherine Tate and David Tennant, need I say more? They're a pairing that has gone on in Doctor Who history as an amazing pairing for Series 4 and obviously coming back in the 60th anniversary specials. It is just a fun story. The banter between the Doctor and Donna is great. You got the Rachnos, who is a fantastic design for a villain. Really, really good. I really like it. All the characters are likeable in a funny way. It's really lighthearted, to sort of bridge the gap between the end of Season 2 when Rose left and the start of Series 3 when Martha Jones joins in, which makes the show have a different tone. But I like The Runaway Bride. I think it's good. Then we've got Smith and Jones, which I think is an okay story. The start of Series 3. I like the Jadoon as a concept for they're not really antagonists. They're the police of space. They're space police rhinos. And they need more stories, I think. I think they deserve to have more stories. So basically, the Doctor and Martha are trapped on the moon because the Jadoon take the hospital that Martha works in, puts it on the moon because there is an alien that needs to be arrested, and the Jadoon are just isolating that building so it can't escape. And so then they invade the hospital and go around searching for this plasmavore, I think is the creature's called, to try and, arrest her, basically. And you find out it's this old lady who, is like a vampire, really, who, sticks a straw into your neck and sucks out all your blood. It makes me kind of like, ugh. But it is a fun story, but it's nothing special, which is why I just put it as, it's okay. The Shakespeare Code, again, is, for me, it's another okay story. William Shakespeare is an interesting concept. You've got witches as well who want to use the magic words of William Shakespeare, because his language is so strong, so great, so powerful, it can open rifts. So you've got these creatures called Carrionites, these three witches who are trying to use Shakespeare's words in order to open a portal to free the rest of their kind. And it's good, a nice story in the past. He takes Martha back there, which obviously times were different back then, so Martha does have those worries. But yeah, it is an interesting story, but I just think pacing sort of lets this story down a little bit. Then we've got Gridlock. Gridlock for me goes up here, because again, if you've seen my ranking every modern Doctor Who story, you know that Gridlock was an honourable mention for me. I love Gridlock. I think it's just a fun story. The Doctor takes Martha back to New Earth, where Rose and all went in Season 2. But this time they go to the Undercity, as the Doctor calls it, actually in the heart of New York, which last year were on the outskirts and didn't actually venture into the city because they were in a hospital. But something's wrong. There's people who are taking these patches to feel different emotions or to forget the past. And the Doctor's wondering what's going on. Martha gets kidnapped by these people who are on a journey to escape what's called the motorway, this long stretch of traffic where all these people are trapped underground. and we find out there's like no chance of escape because they were sealed away due to an event that went on above, and the Face of Bo locked them all down there to save them. It's the return of the Macra from the classic series, who are a bit more savage than they used to be. They don't really have their intelligence. They're like feeding on the fog, and then people who enter the fast lane, as they call it, and take them, to feed them and power them up. It's the last story for the Face of Bo, who passes on a message for a story arc that will continue in season 3 of You Are Not Alone. There's lots that goes on there in this story, but I thoroughly enjoy it, and I can happily sit down and watch it. Then we've got the Daleks in Manhattan, which, for me, the Daleks in Manhattan, I think the Daleks in Manhattan's okay. The first part is not too bad. The concept of the pig slaves is pretty interesting, if you ask me. There's not many. It's like the remainder of the cult of Skaro, who basically just trying to survive, so to speak, and go on living, because that's all the Daleks can do. And the Doctor takes Martha to New York. The Empire State Building hasn't been fully finished yet, and they're taking people. These pig slaves are taking people who are like homeless or lost, turning them either into pig slaves or turning them into human Daleks to build up a new Dalek army. Which, great concept. I just don't think the execution was done very well. It takes elements from Power of the Daleks again, but just, yeah. And then you got the second part, which for me, this might upset some people, but I'm not a fan of Evolution of the Daleks. I love the concept. I just don't think it was executed very well, and it made the Daleks not seem very threatening. The Daleks really didn't do anything in this story, and the Daleks obviously turning on Dalek Sec, and also what they did to my boy Dalek Sec. I love the design of Dalek Sec Hybrid, but Dalek Sec was my favourite, and they just turned him into a guy in a suit, and it was like, I don't like it. It's not very good, if I'm perfectly honest. Though we're on to some beautiful speeches in this story from the Doctor, especially when the Daleks do go on a bit of a killing spree and attack Hooverville, this little community for people who don't have homes or don't have jobs, and they're struggling. Beautiful speeches, love it, great. Good little bit of action scene, but that's about it for that story, if I'm honest. So I can't connect with it very well. The Lazarus Experiment is going down here. I'm not a fan of the Lazarus Experiment. I think the creature design looks cool, but it looks way too CG, stands out way too much. I know this was early 2000s, but it didn't look very good, and still doesn't look very good. I just think that all the characters are insufferable. You really get to know Martha's family more in this story, but if I'm being perfectly honest, they're not very likeable, especially in this story. Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of it. It's about this guy called Lazarus who's grown old. He wants to be young again. He's built a machine which is funded by this this company, and he's using it to try and be young again. But it goes wrong and turns him into a creature. So that's the premise. But I'm not really a huge fan of it, to be honest. 42, I think, is an okay story. A base under siege story. There's this spaceship which is 42 minutes from hurtling into the sun, and they got to try and stop it, basically, and try and save the crew. And then there's these people who are being possessed by the sun because the spaceship has taken something, an element from the sun, and the sun is actually alive and is fighting back, which is why it's possessing people and dragging the ship to it so that it can get it back and get revenge. It's all a bit crazy and weird. The Doctor gets possessed in this story as well, which is scary and good. And I like it when the Doctor becomes the antagonist for a brief moment. I always think that's interesting. But yeah, I'm a bit hit or miss on 42. I like it sometimes I watch it and don't like it other times, which is why I'm putting it in okay. Human Nature and Family of Blood. I'm going to put both the parts up here. Human Nature and Family Blood is really, really good, to be honest. It introduces the concept of the chameleon arch. So this little pocket watch where a Time Lord can hide its consciousness in to hide from threats or danger or to cloak themselves. And then they become something else. So in this case, the Doctor becomes human to hide from the Family of Blood who are searching for him. And it is really, really good. The Doctor becomes the character of John Smith, tries to live a normal life, and Martha becomes his little assistant on Earth. He works in a school. And he builds a good relationship with all the people around him. And it's sad when by the end he actually has to, become the Doctor again. And he becomes like truly dark and like really punishes the family for hunting him down, which every member of the family, son of mine, daughter of mine, father of mine, mother of mine, they're all really good and really creepy. The scarecrows that they use, really good. I like the scarecrows. It is a good story and really emotional. And I do really like it. Well, we've got Blink. I mean, come on, need I say more? I mean, Blink is a fantastic story. Is it a little bit overrated? Yes, to a degree I think it is. But I still think it deserves to be top of the shop because of the fear factor that it gives to the Weeping Angels. The Weeping Angels were absolutely terrifying in this story. You follow it's another Doctor Light story, and you follow this companion character of Sally Sparrow, who's got these strange videotapes of the Doctor who's saying a little message because the Doctor's been actually kidnapped by the Weeping Angels, sent back in time, separated from the TARDIS, and needs help to get back, basically. But yeah, the Weeping Angels are scary. These statues that can only move when you don't look at them. They do them really, really well. And it's all claustrophobic because they're just in this big house. So you've got really tight corridors, the stairwells. It is scary. And I love it. And they do it in a fantastic way. So it's really good. The pacing's perfect. It deserves to be towards the top. Right, now we've got the Master Trilogy. All these parts are going to be in different sections for me because I feel different ways to each of these stories. Utopia is going up here. That might shock some people, but I love Utopia. I think Utopia is a fantastic story. Really builds up the mysteries as well. It brings back Captain Jack, who joins the Doctor and Martha at the end of the universe. They meet this character called Professor Yana, who's trying to help the remaining humans in the universe to escape and go to this Utopia place where everything will be fine, safe from dangers. He's got a little assistant himself called Chando, but the Professor's almost suffering from dreams and nightmares and memories that he can't really explain. He has a pocket watch that he can't open or chooses not to open, but he has like voices from it. And we know from earlier in the series that the pocket watch can hide the consciousness of a Time Lord and rewrite their biology. And it all leads up to the reveal that Professor Yana is actually the Master, who the face of Bowen Gridlock said before that you are not alone, and the words "you are not alone" lead to the name Yana, and it was a brilliant reveal of the Master. And Derek Jacobi does a great job as the Master, who's technically the War Master as well if you've listened to Big Finish, and then becomes John Sims' incarnation of the Master for the remainder 2 parts. And it's done really, really well, and I really, really like it. And I love the relationship between Captain Jack, Martha, and the Doctor. I think they do really well together. The sound of drums for me is then good. It drops a little bit. I like the Doctor, Martha, and Jack having to go on the run because the Master made them fugitives to try and stop the Doctor from interfering. It is really, really fun. You see the Master picking off all of the Doctor's friends and Martha's family one by one. You see how the Master's easily gained in control. You get a good relationship between the Doctor and the Master. It's the first time they've seen each other since the Time War, so they're both a bit, battle damaged and battle scarred for different reasons. I just think it's done really, really well. And amazing cliffhanger at the end where the Master has won. He has finally won properly and defeated the Doctor once and for all and has control over everything. So it's like, how on earth are you going to get out of that? However, then we got Last of the Time Lords, which I'm actually going to put down here because I'm actually not a fan of the last part of a trilogy. It's technically a 2-part, but I call it a trilogy. The Master Trilogy. I'm not a huge fan of Last of the Time Lords. It's silly. It is silly. Martha Jones is the one who has to save the day, which is perfectly fine. And I like that, a companion standing on her own and doing that. But it's just a silly story. It's ridiculous. The Doctor becomes this weird, little gremlin thing at one point, and then becomes proper space Jesus to save the day. It all gets really out of hand. And I think just the fact that the Martha goes around spreading the message of the Doctor around the world, and basically just everyone chanting Doctor's name is more or less what solves all the problems. I just think it's stupid, if I'm honest. I'm not a huge fan of it. And the Master just sits there and takes it. Yeah, not a huge fan of it, if I'm perfectly honest, and the pacing is horrendous in this part as well. I really always check my watch, like, when's this going to end? But yeah, not a good end, if I'm perfectly honest, to a great start to a trilogy. Voyage of the Damned, this is a fun Christmas special. I love most of the Christmas specials from the David Tennant era. I think they are all good. They do a good job at making a Christmas special funny, but still has intensity as well, so it doesn't ruin it. And Voyage of the Damned is no different. It's like it's the space Titanic story with the heavenly hosts, which are brilliant. I love the heavenly hosts. They're great. But yeah, the Doctor's sort of on his own between companions. You know, Martha's left at the end of the last series. She decided not to continue with him. So he's sort of on the hunt for a new companion. He bumps into this person called Astrid Peth, who's, you know, this waitress working on the Titanic. And there's just this group of people who are, you know, in danger because the Titanic is crashing down to Earth. So the Doctor's got to just try and solve it and save the day. And it's just a bit of fun on Christmas. Also introduce you to Wilfred Mott, who becomes a big part of the 10th Doctor's life, especially in the next series. But yeah, I really like Voyage of the Damned. Partners in Crime. What a fantastic start to a series. Fantastic start of Series 4. You know, the Doctor bumps into Donna Noble again after they keep just missing out on each other. There's parts of the story where the TARDIS will land, Donna's car will park next to it, and they'll just miss each other. They'll be on opposite sides of the street and not see each other. Yeah, they're both investigating the same sort of mystery of this company who are using these little capsules to make people skinny. You know, you don't need to be fat anymore. We're solving all of that problem. Take these pills and the fat will just walk away. Which actually is the case, because the fat becomes these little creatures known as adipose, which are adorable, might I add, and it does just walk away. But it is brilliant. The banter between the two of them is great. I just think it's done really, really well. It's a thoroughly enjoyable story. Fires of Pompeii, for me, it's okay. It's okay. It actually sets up the Peter Capaldi era a little bit. You know, giving the Doctor the message that he needs to try and save people no matter what. You know, and you don't always have to let everybody go. It's all right. You know, it's all about, you know, the volcanic eruption in Pompeii. You know, destroying the town, killing loads of people. The Doctor just becomes a part of that, really, and it's to do with these creatures known as the pyroviles doing it and causing the volcano to erupt. But yeah. It's an alright story. Nothing special in my personal opinion. Planet of the Ood. Again, I think for me, it's just alright. Nothing special. You know, the Ood, I wanted another proper Ood story. It's just, you know, you actually go to their planet. They're sort of enslaved in this factory being sold on to people, you know, as slaves, because they are a slave race. But we find out that there's this big brain hidden away in the factory, which triggers the Ood to go rabid and go crazy. You know, that you really make you feel for the Ood in this story, which is done really well. And they turn the main guy of the company into an Ood, because an Ood has like infiltrated them and become his personal slave, only to feed him like this drink that he takes, this hair tonic he thinks, to try and solve his hair loss problem, but it's actually causing it and turns him into an Ood. Sort of out of revenge. They don't say it's revenge, but it's revenge. Then we've got the Sontaran two-parter, the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky. I think, again, they're just okay. There's nothing really too special, in my personal opinion, about the Sontaran two-parter. It's just an okay story. It's nice to see the Sontarans back, you know, bringing back another classic villain, you know, and, you know, giving a bit of a modern twist to them. I think the Sontarans using the car system in order to, you know, take over the planet, I think is very un-Sontaran-like, if I'm honest. The Sontarans are supposed to face battle with dignity, but they are hiding away on their spaceships, allowing basically the humans to just die out themselves and then invade. It's very not Sontaran, if I'm honest, so I'm not a huge fan of the plot. Martha Jones comes back because the Doctor lands in UNIT, and Martha's now working for UNIT. So you've got Martha coming back, which is quite nice, and she's definitely grown a lot more since we last saw her. You know, I like the Sontarans' design. The Sontaran design's cool. I just don't think the Sontarans were used in the right way, but it's still an okay story. The Doctor's Daughter, I think this is a good story. I like the Doctor's daughter. I love the relationship between the Doctor and Jenny. I think it's really good. Martha tags along, not really by choice, but she does tag along, so you've got another Martha story here as well. But I just like that the Doctor will not accept that Jenny is technically his daughter, because she's been bred for war, and it sort of reminds him of the Time War, reminds him of the self that he didn't want to be. So he sees himself in her, which is why he struggles to accept her. But in a way, that's sort of beautiful, because she also does show some of the characteristics of the Doctor, and really, by the end, he accepts her and loves her, and it's really sweet. I also love the Hath, these like little fish creatures that have these little water tanks on their mouths, and they speak like through bubbles. It's quite cute. But yeah, it's a pretty good story and an enjoyable one, because I love the relationship between the Doctor and Jenny. The Unicorn and the Wasp as well. I also really like the Unicorn and the Wasp. I think this is a fun story. Agatha Christie mystery with this giant wasp. It is just a lot of fun. You've got a couple of really good fun stories, if I'm perfectly honest, in Series 4, which is why Series 4 is a fairly strong season, to be perfectly honest. And I can see why people like it. And again, it's because of the relationship between the Doctor and Donna, and it is fantastic in this story as well. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. I think Silence in the Library easily goes up here. Part 1 of that two-parter I think is brilliant. It gives you the scare factor that Impossible Planet and Satan Pit does. Gives you lots of mysteries. The Vashta Nerada are terrifying. The Doctor lands on this big library, which is supposed to be the biggest library in the universe, but it's empty. There's no people around. He doesn't understand why. There's this then space crew that come in and invade, because they're also trying to work out why it's so quiet. And you get introduced to Professor Riversong, played by Alex Kingston, who knows the Doctor, but the Doctor doesn't know her. And we know from the Matt Smith and Capaldi era why she knows who he is. So it is great to see her have a relationship with a Doctor that doesn't know who she is. And I think that is fab. Absolutely brilliant. But for me, they then let it down a decent bit in Forest of the Dead. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I also would say it is definitely nowhere near as good as Part 1, if I'm perfectly honest. It's sort of... They then split the story in half, because Donna gets captured at the end of Part 1 and sent into this weird pocket dimension. And so you then spend half the episode with Donna doing that, where she's living a fake life, and half with the Doctor, you know, going through the library, versing the Vashta Nerada. And it's that with River Song, and that's the part I like. The part with Donna sort of bores me a little bit and takes me out of the action too much. So I'm not a huge fan of that, if I'm honest. But I will say the end speech between the Doctor and River is beautiful and lovely, and I think it is great. And very sweet and emotional, especially at the time, because we were like, oh my god, when are we going to see her again, and what's actually happening? This is really intense. But obviously now, knowing what comes, it's even more emotional, because it's like, yeah, you are going to see her again, and it is sweet. Midnight. Well, Midnight is instantly going up here in like top of the shop. I think Midnight is a fantastic story. Obviously, we had a sequel to that, The Well, in Series 2, which I did like The Well, don't get me wrong, even though Ncuti's era has not been great, but I did like The Well. You know, seeing the Doctor here, you know, he takes the Donna to this like planet called Midnight, this, you know, this paradise planet where everything's made of diamonds. Donna decides to stay in like the plaza section where she can like sunbathe and, you know, go in a pool, where the Doctor goes on this road trip across Midnight, confined in this little bus with these characters of people who are scared, terrified, as there's this unknown creature that's trying to invade the cruiser, and people are like, well, this isn't possible, nothing should be able to survive out there. So it really is scary, and when the creature does invade and starts copying and turning people against each other, it's really intense, and they do it in such a good way. I absolutely love Midnight. Then we got Turn Left. Now, for me, I liked it more the last time I watched it, but for me this is just okay, and that might shock some people, because I know people who really like Turn Left. You know, what if Donna didn't meet the Doctor, didn't take the one path and took the other path? It's one of those. And there's this little beetle on the back, which I think they say is part of the Trickster's Brigade. So you get elements of the Trickster in here, you know, changing, you know, the life without the Doctor. Like in Sergeant Adventures, what if Sarah doesn't protect the Earth? What will happen? You get that here. What if Donna never met the Doctor? Would she ever save the day? That sort of thing. And it's really, really interesting. And she bumps into Rose as well, who's trying to fix things, you know. And you get to see that Rose has grown as a person as well, which is really, really nice. But if I'm honest, it just sort of... it bores me a little bit. I can't deny it's not the best for me. But it doesn't mean it's a terrible story, which is why I think it's okay. Stolen Earth and Journey's End. You know my thoughts on Stolen Earth and Journey's End. I think Stolen Earth and Journey's End... Well, I think Stolen Earth, personally, is absolutely amazing. I think it is a fantastic opener. It does everything just right, and it's perfect. You know, it's a swan song to the RTD era. You've got everything. You've got Sarah Jane and Luke. You've got Torchwood with Jack, Gwen, and Yanto. You've got Jackie and Mickey. You've got Rose. You've got Donna. You've got Martha. You've got Unit. You've got Harriet Jones. You've got everything. The Return of the Dradoon. You've got the Daleks. In a massive grand scale plan. They bring Davros back for the first time in Modern Who. It's just done really, really well. And I love it. And a massive cliffhanger of the Daleks actually managing to kill the Doctor. And he starts to regenerate. And we all thought, what on earth's going on here? And how is he going to get out of this? And are we going to get a new Doctor next week to tackle the rest of this? But yeah. And then I'd say Journey's End is just a little bit worse. Just a tiny bit. I know in my ranking of Modern Who, it's on my list. But I would say, you know, it's just a tiny bit worse. Because, you know, again, they almost, and you can see by the image, they go back to the beach and reenact what happened at the end of season 2, which spoils it for me, if I'm perfectly honest. Not a huge fan of the duplicate Doctor and the way they got out of the regeneration. I would have much preferred to have seen another Doctor, if I'm honest. I thought that would be more interesting. It does just reinforce the fact that the 10th Doctor is such a vain character. But, again... really good story, really good plot, really intense, and the Daleks are scary. So I can't deny, it is fun. The next Doctor, yeah, I think this is okay. It's an okay Christmas special. You know, the Cybermen finally come back after not being in the show since Series 2. They had a bit of a long gap, if I'm perfectly honest. But this is now the start of the end for the 10th Doctor. The final specials, you know, where the Doctor's sort of coming to the end of his life. He bumps into who he thinks is his next incarnation, or a future incarnation, but that future incarnation doesn't know who he is. And so they got a bit of a mystery going on there, and you've got the Cybermen who are trying to convert people in Victorian London. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun, but at the same time, it's a little bit lackluster for a Cyberman story, to be honest. Planet of the Dead, again, is another okay special. You know, nothing fully against it. I think... it, again, is a bit of fun. I love Lee Evans. Lee Evans is fantastic in this story. You know, it's an Easter special. It's one of a few... we don't really have many Easter specials at all. Not that being Easter is relevant to the story, just the Doctor eats an Easter egg at the start, but the Doctor gets on this bus which travels through this, like, rip in time, and they end up on this desert planet, which there's a swarm of alien creatures that are coming, and the Doctor's got to try and get everyone back through the portal and close it. And he calls in Unit to help. And yeah, it's a bit of fun. And he's got this other companion called Christina, who's this burglar who was trying to steal these diamonds and this necklace and things. And, you know, the Doctor tries to teach her the error of her ways, but that doesn't end up happening. But yeah, it's a bit of fun. Waters of Mars. You know my thoughts on Waters of Mars. Waters of Mars for me is instantly going up here in top of the shop because it is my favourite episode of the 10th Doctor era. The Time Lord Victorious arc has finally come to a close, and it is done in just a fantastic way. The Flood are terrifying creatures. I love all the cast. I love that the Doctor regrets what he does at the end, and it is a great base under siege story. Fantastic. If there's one David Tennant story you watch that because it's amazing. Then we got The End of Time. The End of Time... yeah, I have... this is going to hurt some people. End of Time Part 1 is going down here. Really not a fan of End of Time Part 1. The Doctor is so whiny. It is unbearable. Unbearable. It so annoys me so much what they do to the 10th Doctor. The cafe scene. It's the cafe scene where he sat with Wilf moaning and whining because he thinks he's going to go. And he really, really hammers home that it's like, oh, I shouldn't go. It's not fair. Some new man goes sauntering away and I'm dead. It's like, that's Doctor, you've never thought that before. Why are you doing this now? It's just so un-Doctor-like. I'm not a fan of it. But the Master does come back. I will say I do like the stuff of the Master. I think the Master being crazy, really hungry, and having these weird, massive superpowers because of it, I think it's just funny. It's bad funny, though, which is, yeah. But I'm not a fan. The Master's plan is to use this big gateway that's being built in order to transmit a message and turn all the humans into him. Meanwhile, the Time Lords are trying to home in on that message and escape from their little prison and come back. So it's interesting, and the Master does succeed in his mission again. John Sim does really well at succeeding in his plans, I must admit. But yeah, I'm not a fan of End of Time Part 1. And then End of Time Part 2, I think, is a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it is definitely a little bit better than Part 1. I like the conversations the Doctor has with Wilf. I do like the Doctor's goodbye farewell tour. I just don't like that his last line was, I don't want to go, and he went out a bit of a wimp again. And I love the banter between the Doctor and the Master, and I love when the Time Lords return, the standoff that the Doctor has where he's pointing a gun at both the Master and the Lord President, Barusa, and is trying to decide who needs to go. It is really emotional, really good, and I will say, it is an emotional story. It is very emotional, and the fans of the 10th Doctor, I guarantee you are shedding a tear. But that is going to be it for my ranking every 10th Doctor episode. Again, I'm sorry that it was a bit of a long, rambly one, but we will have a bit of a shorter one in the next video, because the next video will be on Christopher Eccleston's 9th Doctor, and we know he had a much shorter run than David Tennant and Matt Smith, so it will be a bit of a shorter one next time. But yeah, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up, and comment down below your thoughts on the 10th Doctor and the 10th Doctor's era. And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grail signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now, everyone.